Core.
You are listening to Core, a show on Code Zero Radio that plays bands located in the Fox Cities. A show to find and discover new music. Hosted by Andy McNamara.
My next guest is influenced by John Prine and Neil Young. Appleton native Michael Grabner is a singer and a songwriter who possesses a unique sound rooted in the traditions of country, folk, and americana, as well as rock and roll. His latest single is called Hello Oblivion. It's available on all the streaming platforms. I'd like to welcome Michael Grabner to Fox Cities Core. How are you doing?
I am good. How are you, Andy?
I'm doing well.
Awesome.
It's a rainy day today here in the Fox Cities.
It is.
Do you like rainy days?
It depends. It depends on my mood. It depends if I have things to do. If I can just, stay at home and write music, it's great. If I have to go out in the world, it's annoying because I don't own an umbrella. So I'm often getting wet. Yeah.
Being a songwriter I'm guessing like the weather can influence your moods. And when you're writing music, does like weather like this help? I mean, are you going to write better when it's like this? Because you don't have the distractions of going out and doing something?
Well, for me, when it comes to the weather, I never feel like I fully wake up on a day that's this dark and rainy. And I like that feeling when I'm writing music. For me, I feel like I do my best lyric writing in particular when my subconscious is doing some of the work. And so if I'm tired or not feeling, 100% awake, that's good for my process. So, yeah.
Well, you've been busy this week. I think you played at the Gibson Music Community Hall on Wednesday. I think was at Swamico you played in?
Thursday. Yep. So I was at Gibson on Wednesday and in Swamico at District 1 Brewing Company. No, Station 1 Brewing Company on Thursday. Yeah.
Well, we're going to get into like how you got into music and all of that. I want to start out with a quote here, though.
All right.
I thought this was a pretty nice and a kind of a very nice big badge of honor to wear. Kurt Gunn, he is the best area songwriter, hands down, was a quote from Kurt. That's a pretty good recommendation right there from somebody who I think is fantastic.
Yeah, that's really something. I disagree. I think that Kurt is the best area songwriter, hands down. But yeah, wow, I'll take it.
Let's talk about when you got kind of interested in music. Was it when you were a kid or was it when you were older?
So I think my real interest in music started when I was in high school. Growing up, I kind of just listened to what was on the radio, I guess, pop music, hip hop, what all the kids were listening to at that time. But as I got into high school, I started becoming interested in classic rock, I guess, which really started because of my grandparents, them showing me their music and what they grew up listening to. So at that time, I got really into the Rolling Stones and the Doors, Jimi Hendrix, that kind of thing. And then in that series of, music, I stumbled on Bob Dylan, which that was the first artist that really blew my mind, and made me think like I could maybe do that. Like I could, do what he was doing to some extent.
Was it the lyrics that kind of drew you in, or was it the guitar playing? What was it that specifically pulled you in?
It was his lyrics. That was the biggest thing, I think. Just the kind of surreal poetry of everything that he was doing. And then also he's not a good singer. Like there's something really like there's something that pulls you in about his voice, but it's not like he's a classically good singer, and I don't think I am either, especially back then. So there's something about it that made me think like, oh, I could do this too. So yeah, then I got my first guitar as a birthday present for my 18th birthday, so my senior year in high school, and that's kind of where actually making music started.
So prior to that guitar that you got for your 18th birthday, you had no guitar instructions or anything prior to that?
Nothing. I played violin starting in 4th grade and through 7th grade. So that's the only real musical training, I guess, that I had.
So 3 years on violin. Are you still fluent at violin?
No. No,
like if you picked one up today, could you at all play anything on it?
I do not think I could. I mean, it was so long ago, and I wasn't really invested in it, honestly, when I was doing it. So, yeah, I think I forgot about it just as quickly as I learned it.
So do you remember the first song that you tried to play on guitar?
I think I do. I think the first song was Folsom Prison Blues. For whatever reason, I can remember I was at my grandparents' place the day that I got my guitar, and I remember going into their office onto YouTube and looking up an instruction on how to play Folsom Prison. I guess I was in a Johnny Cash mood that day. And I was just like working on that opening riff, whatever that he does, you know, and yeah, just kind of went from there.
Were originals on your mind at all at this point? Was that like a goal to eventually write your own music, or at first it was just, I just want to learn some songs that I know?
Yeah, at first it was more just wanting to learn some songs that I knew. The idea of like writing didn't come until a little bit later.
Just let the sump pump finish there.
Yeah, it's done. I didn't know how long that was going to go.
That was a long one. So it's interesting because you're into classic rock and then got into Bob Dylan. You get your first guitar at 18, and the first song you learn is Folsom Prison Blues from Johnny Cash. Mm-hmm. And at this point, did that kind of get you interested at all to get an electric guitar? You're perfectly happy like keeping the acoustic and...
So when I first started, I had an electric guitar for a while, and I messed around on the electric for a few years early on, but for whatever reason, whether that's like the country folk influences, I tended to steer away from that and go more acoustic. Although I've been thinking about getting a new electric guitar recently, but for the most part, I've, stuck to the acoustic.
So how long was it after getting that acoustic and learning covers? How long was it until you produced your first song?
Oh gosh.
Or wrote your first song?
I probably wrote my first song when I was 20. A theme of my music career is like that I was pushed into things, not pushed, but nudged into things by my grandparents, who are huge music fans. If you're out on the Fox Cities music scene at a show, you're likely going to see them. But they, it was them kind of encouraging me that I should start to learn guitar. And then, as I was getting better at it, starting to be able to play chords and stuff that sounded like music, they encouraged me to start trying to write. They were big into the Steel Bridge Music Festival in Sturgeon Bay. They went every single year, and they took me along, and I was really inspired by a lot of those artists. Pat McDonald, who runs the whole thing, and other people who, Jerry X was one, and, I was really inspired by all these people, and my grandparents were like, well, you should write songs too, because that's an all original music festival. And yeah, so I remember I was actually with them at Steel Bridge. This must have been 2012 or 2013. And yeah, that's like, I had my guitar, and that's the first time I tried actually writing something. So yeah.
Was that Steel Bridge?
Steel Bridge, yeah.
And is that a song that survived the test of time? Do you still play it?
Wait, the song Steel Bridge?
Oh no, the song. Did you say you wrote your first song at the Steel Bridge?
I did, but oh no, it didn't survive the test.
Okay.
I have no idea what that song was at this point. Yeah, no.
Sometimes people write like their first song is the best song they ever wrote, and it like just keeps, it stays forever like in the music catalog. But yours, that one kind of sunk.
Yeah, no, there's a fair amount of songs that I wrote before any of them stuck. So yeah, no.
Well, let's talk about that. So you continue to write originals,
Mm-hmm.
and at what point did it, did you finally get to where you were like, I want to play these in front of people. I'm ready to play these in front of an audience.
Man, so yeah, I was writing for a while, and I think my first gig was 2013, because I wasn't 21 yet. I remember that. I couldn't drink at the bar. And yeah, I don't know. I think I had finally started to write some songs that just by sheer luck weren't horrible, right? And, I had some people encouraging me, like, you should start trying to, play these for people. So I started at open mics, I remember playing at the, what was it? It's the coffee shop downtown Appleton. Was it Harmony Cafe?
Yeah, that changed names a couple times. I think.
Yeah, it did over the years, but that's what it was, I think, when I started playing the open mic that they had there. And then also I would go up to Sturgeon Bay. They have a writer's night on Thursday nights, which was specifically for like an open mic for songwriters. So I would go up there. That was actually the first time I played in front of a microphone, was at one of those writers' nights. So I did that. I started busking downtown Appleton. I started doing that for a while. Just opening the guitar case and standing out on the avenue on Friday, Saturday nights. I did that. And then finally, I got my first gig, and that was at... What was that place? I'm blanking on the name.
Was it the Maritime?
No, it wasn't Maritime. It was. It's on Richmond Street.
Cold Shot.
No. I can't believe I'm blanking on the name of this place.
Emmett's?
Yes. Thank you. It was Emmett's. I played like a happy hour gig at Emmett's. And yeah, that was the first paid gig.
I think your grandparents at this point I'm guessing they attended that show?
They sure did. A lot of friends and family there at that first one.
So your grandparents were they were going to a lot of shows. Were they taking you with them?
Yes.
To a lot of those? So do you specifically remember any of the Fox Cities artists that you went to see with your grandparents around that time?
So at that time, it was a lot of the Sturgeon Bay people. My grandparents were huge Pat McDonald fans, so they followed him around pretty much everywhere. They were also big Jerry X fans, and so I went to a lot of her shows with them, including, like, I remember seeing her at Fox River House back in the day. Chris Aaron Band, I don't know if you know. Yeah, Chris was just the most amazing guitar player. And
nicest guy, too.
And just the kindest dude. So I went to quite a few of his shows with them too. Yeah, so that's like in this time period, those are the kinds of people I was seeing with them.
During that time, were they kind of pushing you to go up and sort of mingle with some of these artists and be like, hey, can you maybe take Michael under your wing and have him, open a show or something?
Yes. And that always made me incredibly uncomfortable. I hated the idea of like, talking to an artist after their set because to me it was just so intimidating. I don't know, like they seemed like they were like on another level and just like, why would they want to talk to me? So
how do you feel now when people come up to you after shows? Do you get that?
I just, it's crazy because it means a whole lot to me when someone wants to do that now. So yeah, it's funny how that works.
How was the singer-songwriter scene in the Fox Cities? I know we've got, Kurt Gunn and a lot of great, Bellwether, lots of great singer-songwriters around here. Are there a lot of younger ones that you've met that are coming up? I know Cal Shimmers has been playing. Yeah,
Cal is incredible. But yeah, there's so much talent in this town, in the general area. I'm a big Amelia Ford fan. Yeah. She's her record that she released, I don't know, that wasn't that long ago.
Yeah, Wide Open.
Yes, just incredible. I'm a huge fan of Levi Besaw's solo work that he's done recently. He's just the most insane lyricist. I'm trying to think who else. In Green Bay, actually, there's a guy, Nick Gonnering. I don't know if you know that name. He moved back here recently from Kentucky, I think. And he's just a ridiculously talented songwriter. So, yeah, I could go on for ages. There's so many great people making music around here. It's inspiring. Yeah.
So when you were busking, was that around the start of Mile Music? I think
probably
2013.
2013, yeah, around that time.
So I'm guessing you attended the festival.
I did.
And that must have been a kind of a push to want to get something recorded or get an album out to maybe be a part of that.
Yeah, that's exactly what I did. Yep, because it was, it was such a cool thing happening in this town, specifically for songwriters and songwriters who, it was branded as like an Americana music festival early on. And that's kind of what I did. So yeah, I wanted to be part of it.
So Restart, that wasn't your first recording, was it?
It's the first recording I like to tell people about.
Let's talk about the first thing you recorded.
All right. So this would have been around the time of, the beginning of Mile Music. I went and recorded an EP with Tony Anders.
Oh, at Studio H?
Studio H, yes. And this would have been 2013, 2014. It was just like a 6-song thing. And, I like to forget about it now. Some people, my grandparents, like to say that there's a lot of good songs, and the production is great. It was awesome working with Tony. That was my first time, like, experiencing, like, a recording studio, But, I listen back to it, and I kind of cringe a little bit. My singing back then was left something to be desired. And yeah, there's just, I obviously have critiques of the songwriting and everything about those songs now.
Is there any way anybody would stumble upon this on the internet anywhere? You made sure every copy was...
It's been scrubbed. You'd have to talk to my grandparents, my mother. A few friends probably have some copies of that CD. But yeah, there's really nothing on the internet. One song off that record I'll still play live occasionally. But that's about it.
So what changed with your style from that to Restart? Like, were you singing a different way? Were you just songwriting differently?
Both of those things. you know, I listen to those songs now, and it's like the songwriting is very, you know, like a lot of those songs, some of them don't have a chorus at all. Some of them that do, I'm, you know, waiting almost 2 minutes into a song to get to a chorus. A lot of the songs are 6 minutes long. I like to be more expedient in my songwriting now, you know, get to a hook quicker, you know, cut out the fat. You know, a lot of those songs I feel like just drag on because I didn't know what I was doing. Like long, not because, you know, if a song's going to be like 5+ minutes long, I feel like there had better be a really good reason for that. And some of those early songs just, there wasn't a good reason. And then in terms of my singing, you know, like singing, I really figured out by the seat of my pants. I never was in choir or anything. I never took a vocal lesson. So that shows, especially early on. And it's just like the more that I've, you know, the more I've sang, I feel like I've just kind of figured out how to do it on my own. And yeah, back in like 2013, 2014, I did not have it figured out yet. So, yeah.
Well, you had the recording from Studio H.
Yep.
And did that help you get into Mile, to play your first Mile?
It did not. No.
So before, okay, in between the Studio H recording and Restart, was there anything in between those two?
No, not really. So that Restart record, that took me about, the first demo session that I did for that record would have been, it was either late 2014 or early 2015. And I didn't release it until 2021. So that took a long time to make. And, you know, that's not because I was spending hours in the studio meticulously going over things. It's because I went to rehab a couple times. So, yeah, there was some personal life stuff that between that Studio H album and releasing Restart that stalled my music career, I would say.
You're very open with going to rehab. I mean, that obviously is a big thing, but when you were kind of drinking a lot, was that affecting the playing? And was it sort of taking you off track?
Oh, yeah.
Moving forward. One question I had, so now when you're playing, it seems like you're playing a lot of wine bars, a lot of bars. Is it still a struggle, or are you in a good spot where it...
Yeah, so I'm in a good mental place right now, for, you know, a lot of reasons. And when I'm in a good spot, it doesn't really bother me. You know, it's like, I don't think it would be healthy for me to hang out in a bar with my friends, just drinking seltzer, whatever, you know, just for the sake of hanging out, right? When I'm going to play a gig, it's like I have a reason to be there. I'm doing my job. And when I look at it that way, it's easy to just almost forget that it's there. And then when I see like really drunk people, it's like, I don't miss that. I don't miss feeling like that. So yeah, no, it's not really a challenge anymore. Yeah.
With Mile of Music, is it different playing at somewhere like Mile versus a regular gig in like a bar, as far as like the amount of people listening and the amount of like excessive drinking?
Yeah, so both of those things are true. You know, it's Mile is incredible because you're playing to a lot of people and it's a quiet room. You know, as a local musician, that's not an every gig thing, right? It's maybe 1 in 5 to 1 in 10. But then you play at Mile, and it's every show. And that's just an incredible feeling. As you get late into the night, particularly on Friday and Saturday, it becomes kind of more of a party scene. And like I said, when I see people getting really drunk, like I used to do every single night, it doesn't make me miss it, honestly, because it reminds me of where I don't want to be, I guess. So if I look at it that way, things go well.
That's a pretty heavy topic.
Well, that's my thing, heavy stuff.
Let's lighten it up a little bit.
All right.
You've made it to band reaction. That's where we play a clip from a previous guest, and then we get your reaction.
All right.
This clip is Freddie Haas and Tony Oakley. Freddie, of course, from the Red Hawks, or Freddie from Red Hawks. No the in there. And Tony Oakley from Horace Green.
Band reaction. Band reaction.
This is Freddie Haas from Red Hawks.
This is Tony Oakley from Horace Green.
And Michael, your question is, who is the better songwriter? Paul McCartney
Or John Lennon? Or Godzilla?
It's a tough one.
It is. The Godzilla really threw me off because, that's I'm not too familiar with his work. I think Godzilla's a he. But so I'm going to focus on Paul and John, and God, that's such a hard choice for me to make. I'm more of a John Lennon guy in terms of my Beatles stuff. His material was darker, which I like. I think more of my favorite Beatles songs are John Lennon songs. However, I think that Paul McCartney is the better songwriter. I just, the way that he crafted melodies, the way that he kind of can see like the whole production of like how the song is going to sound by the end. It's something that is so rare what he can do. And I think that my opinion almost changed a little bit too after watching the Get Back documentary on Disney Plus that Peter Jackson did. Watching him in the studio, just kind of, writing Get Back, literally just sitting there with the bass, and, just, you could just see the way that he thinks about songwriting, and it's just like, he's a special talent. So I would give the edge to Paul, even though John is more my, cup of tea.
So I feel like we've been covering a lot of ground, but we still have a lot to cover. So you went to rehab.
Yes.
You got out and you started trying to button up Restart so you could get that out. Were most of the songs written prior to the rehab stint, or did you have some written?
Yeah, that's a good question. It's about half and half. So that record is 9 songs. I think about 4 of them I had written and essentially done and recorded, mixed and mastered, at the time before I went to rehab. And then the rest of those songs I actually wrote, in rehab. I was fortunate enough that they let me have my guitar in there. And I just did a lot of songwriting. So Yeah, the rest of the songs were written in the 28 days that I was in residential treatment.
Was it hard to put yourself out there as far as recording that, and then, knowing that everybody would ask you, hey, what about this song, or, this song?
Honestly, I feel like one of my strengths as a songwriter, as a musician, is I'm just willing to be really vulnerable about this stuff. Mental health stuff, addiction stuff, it oftentimes gets kind of brushed under the rug. People don't talk about it. People who are going through it, they feel really isolated in that, that no one else is experiencing that. So I've just tried to be open about it, it's not, especially early on, it wasn't always very comfortable. But yeah, I've kind of realized that, that's going to be part of my musical journey, is just being willing to be open about that kind of stuff. And it's not always, especially not easy, because, I've had lengths of sobriety and then I've relapsed. So that's, having to explain that to fans, to whoever is hard, because it feels like a failure to an extent. But I don't know. I just keep talking about it, and that seems to, it helps me, and I hope it helps other people too.
Do you have, during shows, situations that might get uncomfortable with people sending a beer up to the stage?
I feel like, honestly, it's been a while since that's happened. And I think because I'm so open about it, most of the people who are coming out to see me are pretty conscious of it. More so than people sending a beer, I'll have people like on a break or before or after the gig, be like, I'm going to buy you a drink. And, that's easier to just say, like, I'm okay, but thank you very much, as opposed to like, there's the drink in front of me.
Right.
So, so I haven't had many issues there.
So where did you record the Restart album at?
I recorded that at Rock Garden Studio with Marc Golde.
Marc's really good.
He really is.
how did you record it? Did you do sort of a live run through and then kind of go through and add some vocals?
Yeah, so that's exactly what we did. We did a live run through with me and then the rhythm section, which most of that record, that was Chris Hanaway and Rick Armstrong on the bass and the drums. And yeah, we did, we ran through it, the three of us, and then did the vocals later, as well as overdubbed like the guitar parts and other stuff like that. Like there's some steel guitar in that record that Frank Anderson played, and some other stuff like that. Yeah, keys, organ, and piano, which Marc played. So yeah,
a lot of great players on that album.
Yeah, I was really super happy with the people that I was able to work with on that record. A lot of talented guys.
Was Marc pretty hands-on as far as like coming up with a suggestion? Is like, maybe you should add this to this song, or maybe do it this way, or was he more hands-off?
He was more hands-on, and that's what I wanted. That I encouraged that, because we were just talking about McCartney, and he always had this vision of how he wanted the final product of a song to sound, right? And I, especially at the time of making that record, did not have that. I didn't really I saw my part with the acoustic guitar and the vocals, but, after that, I wasn't too sure. And, Golde has that ability to see where he thinks a song should go, and I really leaned into that with that record. Yeah.
So once the album was recorded, did you yourself do the art for the cover?
That cover art is my aunt did that. She's a super talented graphic artist and who lives in Milwaukee. So yeah, she did all that art, which turned out incredibly, in my opinion.
It did. And then so at that point when Restart came out, you were faced with probably how to market it or how to promote it. Was that sort of a struggle to get that out, or how did you roll it out?
Yeah, it was a struggle. I kind of just did everything, I just flew by the seat of my pants in terms of like how to market an album release. And, I had the help of some, good friends on the scene who are more experienced in that. Gunn actually helped out a lot in terms of exposing it to, like the Avenue and to you and some other avenues as well. And Marc Golde helped with a lot of that too, in terms of like, okay, like how do you get this on the streaming platforms, right? I didn't know what DistroKid or any of the distribution services were. And then, yeah, I just kind of just started doing things. I don't know. It just, I reached out to certain people. I did one single, Restart, the title track, and I just kind of figured it out as I went.
So I've noticed a similar pattern with the Hello Oblivion. So you released Restart as a single,
Correct.
Then you released the album. Now you just released Hello Oblivion, and that's going to be the first track of the Hello Oblivion full album.
So that's not going to be the title track.
Okay.
The record is going to be called A Story I Can't Tell. And I think I'm going to release one more single off of that. It's it's funny. I had a whole plan in terms of dates of how I was going to do this whole thing, and it's kind of been waylaid. And that's because Spotify, when I released Hello Oblivion, everything was good for like a week, and then suddenly they split it into a separate artist profile. So there was one Michael Grabner with the whole Restart album, and then there was a second artist, Michael Grabner, with just that one song, Hello Oblivion. And I'm like, okay, I'm not going to release any other music until this is fixed. And, Spotify, DistroKid, these places don't have phone numbers. They don't have particularly quick customer service. So it finally got resolved last week, and so it's fixed. So now we're back to, that's all, taken care of. So now it's going to be in the next couple weeks. I'm going to release a second single, and then a few weeks after that, I'll release the whole record.
There's another Michael Grabner who's a hockey player you're probably aware of.
Well aware. Well aware.
Do you get any traffic from that Michael Grabner? Has he ever reached out and said, hey, I checked out your music. It looks like he's a professional hockey player.
He is. He's an NHL player. I guess a quite good one. I think he's like really fast. Like he can skate really fast. But I have not heard from him. There has been confusion. I actually just had a friend say that they saw on Amazon that I had done this podcast. And I'm like, he's like, when was that? I'm like, I don't think I did a podcast. I'm like, are you sure it's not the NHL player? He's like, I don't think so. And then he literally pulled up his phone, and I'm like, yeah, that's the hockey player. So I've had interactions like that for years and years.
When you played, like, so sometimes you've played with other players live, and then sometimes you do the solo. But
Yeah.
I saw you had, like, Ryan Mendola was his name. Does he play on any of the Hello Oblivion?
No,
track?
so this record is a completely solo acoustic thing. So it's just me. That was not when I started the demo session for this. It's not what I envisioned at first. But the more I thought about it, the more I felt like this group of songs, it should be representative of what I'm doing live. And these are songs that, you know, I feel like the way that I intended for them to be heard was stripped down solo. So yeah, that's what this whole project is.
And you recorded this at Rock Garden as well.
Correct.
And you did some videos with Marc Golde at the studio. Were those separate from the recordings, or was that a live take of while you were doing the recording?
Separate from the recordings. We did that. I kind of made the decision that I wanted to do those videos a little bit later. So that was separate. But yeah, that was, you know, that was all his kind of idea with the aesthetic of the whole thing. And I think they turned out really well.
I agree.
Yeah.
So you're pretty comfortable working with Marc Golde?
Yes, I sure am. He's my, you know, he's always the person that I'm thinking of when it comes to recording. Yeah.
What are some of the things you like about Marc's style and some of the things you like about the actual studio?
I mean, the studio itself is just so cool. I think it just feels like an old school recording studio with that board, and just everything about it is just like what I pictured going into a recording studio would be like as, you know, early on when I started making music. And, you know, Golde is just so chill, and the vibes are just, you know, I just feel comfortable around him, which I think that's really important when it comes to, like, you know, recording music to feel relaxed and at ease. And I feel that way with him. And he just makes everything sound really great. You know, he can play basically anything himself, any part. You know, like, I get compliments all the time on the guitar solos on Restart, that track. And he played on that, and he just came up with that on the spot, you know, and he did that on a lot of the songs. You know, there's so many different, like, intangibles that just make working with him just, it's like the logical choice for me, because everything sounds great. He can play anything. He can help with, you know, ideas. He's, you know, the vibes are good. It doesn't get much better. So yeah, he's who I go to.
We've got a question here from Todd Belke.
Todd.
The question is, are you planning on setting up any tours? Well, that's a good question.
That is a very good question. Yeah, so that's something that's been on my radar for a while. As of now, I have a day job, which makes it more complicated. I work full-time as well as doing the music. So, you know, that's kind of been on the back burner for a little bit, but at some point, I definitely want to do that. And, you know, my current day job isn't a forever thing. So taking that leap into music full time is kind of a scary thing, but I think at some point it's a good possibility. So, yeah.
Any chance maybe we would see like a short, like, tour with Gunn or something like that, where he maybe run to like Illinois and Minnesota and back?
Maybe. Kurt, let me know if you're interested, if you're watching this. Yeah, no, that's a cool idea, actually. But yeah, like a short stint, I could definitely see doing something like that. Yeah.
You had a medical scare this year. You had a appendicitis, which it got way worse than that. And you were in the hospital for over 2 weeks.
Yeah.
What made you realize that you needed to go get checked? And like, that had to be pretty scary as far as, did you think you were going to make it out of there?
Definitely began to have my doubts as to if I was going to make it out of there. But yeah, it all started, I went into the hospital on a Tuesday. I started feeling this kind of weird pain in my stomach, the previous Sunday. So just a couple days before. And it was tolerable Sunday and Monday, but it was like, just feels like a weird kind of stomach ache. And then Tuesday morning I woke up and I was like, something's wrong here. So I went into the doctor and they were pretty confident it was my appendix that needed to come out. But yeah, when they did the CT scan, they realized, yes, the appendix needed to come out. The appendix was ruptured, but it had also inverted into my colon, which the surgeon told me that she had never actually seen that in her entire career. It's not something that happens often. So by inverting into my colon, it ended up infecting a chunk of my colon. So they ended up having to take out a few feet of my colon as well as the appendix with that first surgery. So that was supposed to be like a 3 to 5 day recovery. And, I actually thought that I was going to get out of the hospital the second day after surgery. And they started me on solid foods that day that I was supposed to get out. And that's when things really went awry. I couldn't keep anything down. And I just progressively kept getting worse and worse for over a week. And finally they decided that they had to go back in and do another like exploratory surgery. I had a bad infection. I'm lucky I didn't go septic. But yeah, so they had to open me up, clean me out. And then after that second surgery, things, for the most part, just started to improve. But yeah, I was in the hospital for 22 days. And the few days before that second surgery, I was thinking I might die. And that's not fun. But yeah, it makes me really, really super grateful to be upright and mobile. And, I don't know. I've had like a new appreciation for like what I get to do every time I go out and play a show. I'm like, yeah, this could all go away so easily. And, I get to go do something I really love doing, and get paid for it. And, not a lot of people, have that opportunity, and it's just, I'm so grateful for it. And, yeah, it took thinking I was going to die to have a new appreciation. So, yeah.
Do you have any sort of holdover symptoms from that?
Yeah. I have some digestive issues that I didn't have before. They ended up having to take a good bit of my colon, and, when they do that and they have to reroute everything in there, that's just kind of a given that you're going to have digestive issues. Your body is, adjusting to that. But they say it's not permanent. 6 months to a year, they say, for like, getting back on track with that. And it's definitely gotten noticeably better, but I can't eat Indian food, and that makes me very sad because it's my favorite.
It makes me sad.
Yeah, it should. I miss my chicken masala, but someday I will be eating it again, I think. So, yeah.
Where do you see the Fox City scene going in the next couple of years?
That's a good question. I think I see a continuation of what's happening now. And, I think a growth of that, I think that it seems like, year over year, there's just more and more people that are interested in seeing live original music. There's always, it seems like, a new venue and a new place that's doing, that's supporting that kind of thing. And then new artists, who come onto the scene and, are doing something different. And that, that's just so cool. I love, like, learning about someone new and then going to see their show. And it's just like to have a community that, nurtures like the artistic development of like people who are living here. It's just, we're really lucky to have it. Especially in a town this size, Appleton's not huge. And it's just such a cool thing.
If there was one artist coming to town that you could open for, and you got to pick, who would you pick?
Carter Halsey. And he comes to town a fair amount. So, maybe that opportunity will come someday, but I'm a huge fan of his. He's a Mile Music guy. He's been in the Fox Cities a fair amount. And when I was really starting to get serious about my, songwriting and trying to, do music, I was listening to a lot of him, and he's honestly been a big influence on a lot of the stuff that I do. And he's just a cool guy. So yeah, that would be an awesome thing.
It's rainy out today.
So I hear.
Let's talk a little bit before we have to go about Hello Oblivion.
Sure.
So we kind of already talked about it, but when can we expect the full album to be released?
The full album, I was thinking November. Now it's going to be early December. Because I want to have space for one more single and for that to have a little time to breathe. And then the whole 14-song record will be early December.
Are you going to plan an album release party?
Well, I didn't do that with Restart, and now a few people have asked me about it. And I'm kind of in the process of exploring that right now. Because, I just fly by the seat of my pants with this. With the Restart record, I just kind of looked at what I already had scheduled for gigs, and then I found the one that was closest to when I was going to release it. I'm like, okay, I'll just call that an album release show. But, I think a fair amount of people have told me I should do like an actual event, and I think there's a few places that I could see doing that at. So yeah, stay tuned. Something like that may happen.
What's your current favorite song off the upcoming album, even if we don't know the titles, where we can look back later and see what that was?
Wow. I think my favorite song on there is a song called Silver Bullets, which Kurt Gunn actually suggested that name. I'm horrible at naming my songs. But I've kind of been moving in a new musical direction lately, away from like the same kind of folk type song that was my comfort zone for a really long time. And that song is kind of, the one song on the record that's kind of showing like the transition to what I'm writing now. And so, yeah, I really like that one.
I can't wait to see how that song sounds.
Yeah.
Feel free to send it to me early if you want.
I will. I'll do that.
Do you have a favorite venue in the Fox Cities to play at?
Yeah, Gibson Community Music Hall. It has to be. It's just for a thousand reasons. I mean, it always sounds so great. The best, sound engineers out there are working at Gibson. And, it's, the audience is always there to listen to the music. I got the chance to open for Betsy 8 and the Well-Known Strangers trio last Wednesday. And those are the kind of shows that just like, remind you why you're doing this. Just a lot of people who are super passionate about music who are actually listening. It means the world to be able to play a show like that. So Gibson's my favorite.
Where can people go to find out more about Michael Grabner?
Well, they can go to my website, michaelgrabnermusic.com. And, from there, that's where my whole live music schedule is, and it's almost always current. There are a few dates that I need to add on there. There's also links to all my socials there. But yeah, you can find Michael Grabner Music on Instagram, Facebook, and then, my music is streaming on all the major streaming services, so you can find it all there too.
Michael, I want to thank you for doing Fox Cities Core on Code Zero Radio this morning. And everybody go check out Hello Oblivion, and we look forward to the album Story I Can't Tell in a couple months.
Looking really forward to it. Thank you, Andy. This was a lot of fun.
You've been watching Fox Cities Core on WCZR, Code Zero Radio.